In this video, we're going to start out with our Reading T-7 turret press set up to load 30-06, and we're going to switch over to loading 223 Remington and take a look at what that process looks like. We're going to start by swapping out shell holders. For loading 30-06, we've got a Reading number 1 shell holder installed on the press. For loading 223, we need a Reading number 10 shell holder. When installing the shell holder, I like to face the shell holder towards the direction of insertion for smoother workflow. The next step is to index the turret head into the proper position. And our 30-06 dies are here, our 223 dies are over there, so what we're going to do is we're going to just move the head into the appropriate spot, replace the indexing handle into the proper position so that we can easily change between the sizing and depriming die and the bullet seating die. So we're starting with Remington 223 brass that's already been tumbled and cleaned, and we've also lubricated this brass. So the first step in the reloading process is to size and deprime the brass. The next step for our caliber changeover is going to be to switch out the priming cup. We had the large priming cup installed for loading 30-06, and we're going to need the small assembly for 223. So the first step is to loosen the lock nut, which locks the priming cup in place. We're just going to back that off a little bit. And then we're going to be able to access the cross hole. There's a hole drilled crossways through this assembly. So what we're going to do is we're just going to stick a paper clip through this cross hole. And when we do that, we need to get the spring out of the way. There we go. So we've got our paper clip through the hole there. We're going to then use that to back the assembly out. Our next step is going to be to assemble and install the small primer priming assembly. So what we're going to do is take our plunger, install the cup onto the plunger, and we then place the spring over that. And in order to get this on in an effective manner, what I'm going to do is put the paper clip through this assembly and then raise the priming arm and use the paper clip again as a wrench, essentially, to tighten this assembly until it bottoms out. We've got that. And then we're going to take our Allen key and tighten the lock screw so that this assembly does not loosen during use. And there we go. Our priming assembly is now ready to use. The next step in the reloading process for this 223 reloading that we're doing here is to take each of the cartridges, these are cleaned and lubricated cases, and to size and deprime these cases. In this particular case, we are using once fired federal brass, and what we're going to do is clean out the primer pockets and put on a bit of a chamfer before we go ahead and reprime the cases, which we'll also do on the press here. We're just going to continue to size and deprime here. A process that really goes pretty quick with the proper lubrication. With this particular set of brass, and in fact with all rifle brass, I like to use thicker lubricants because they tend to minimize the possibility of a stuck case. Now this particular brass still needs to have the primer pocket cleaned out. The other thing about this brass is that this federal brass does not have a very generous primer pocket chamfer. So what I'm going to do is first clean the primer pocket out by using the primer pocket cleaning attachment on my Redding 2400 case trimming lathe. We can see that that does a really nice job of cleaning out the primer pocket. And then I'm going to take a case mouth chamfering tool and I'm going to apply a nice chamfer on the primer pocket mouth here. And what this is going to do is this is going to assist the primer in being aligned in the primer seating process. Now that we've cleaned the primer pockets and chamfered the primer pockets, it's time to prime the cases on the press. So now what we're going to do is raise the ram, flip over our primer arm, and that primer arm is now going to be in place when we go to prime these cases. So we're going to just raise the ram slightly, insert the case, raise the ram all the way, put a primer into the primer cup, push forward slightly, and then we've got a primed case for each of these cases that we're going to process. So we'll do that again. Raise all the way, put a primer in the primer cup, push forward to prime the case. And again,